The security cameras at Riverside Psychiatric Hospital recorded everything that happened on the night of March 14th. What they captured in those 7 hours would force the Department of Defense to acknowledge a program they'd spent 8 years denying existed. But this story doesn't start with the breach. It starts 3 weeks earlier, with a man the intake psychiatrist described as textbook, paranoid schizophrenic with military-themed delusions. A man who'd been committed by his own sister after he barricaded himself in his apartment, convinced that people were coming to kill him. His name was Michael Chen, Staff Sergeant Michael Chen, according to him, though the military had no record of anyone by that name ever serving in any branch. And what the hospital didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Michael was telling the truth about everything, and that 4 men were already planning how to get him out. Dr. Sarah Brennan had been working psychiatric intake at Riverside for 11 years. She'd evaluated over 3,000 patients. She thought she'd seen every variation of military-themed delusion that trauma and mental illness could produce. Michael Chen walked into her office on February 23rd, escorted by 2 police officers and his sister Jennifer. He was calm. Too calm, Sarah noted. Most involuntary commitments came in agitated, angry, or catatonic. Michael sat down, made direct eye contact, and waited. "Mr. Chen," Sarah began, reviewing the police report, "your sister called 911 because you were barricaded in your apartment. You told the responding officers that you were in danger. Can you tell me who you think wants to hurt you?" "I don't think anyone wants to hurt me, Dr. Brennan." Michael's voice was steady. "I know someone is coming, I just don't know when." Jennifer Chen spoke up, her voice cracking. "He's been like this for 3 weeks, ever since he came back from wherever he was. He won't tell me where he's been. He emptied his bank account. He sleeps with a knife. He checks the locks 40 times a day." Sarah had heard variations of this story dozens of times. Combat veterans struggling with PTSD, civilians who'd created elaborate military fantasies to process trauma. The patterns were predictable. "Michael, your sister says you've told her you were in the military, but when she tried to access your service records for VA benefits, there was nothing. No record of you ever enlisting." "That's correct," Michael said. "There wouldn't be." "Can you explain that?" "No." "Because you're not allowed to, or because there's nothing to explain?" Michael looked at his sister. Something passed between them, grief, maybe, or resignation. "Jenny, I need you to listen to me. In about 2 weeks, 4 men are going to try to contact you. They're going to ask questions that will sound crazy. Please answer them truthfully, and please—" His voice cracked for the first time. "Please, don't let them think I broke." Jennifer started crying. "Michael, there are no men, there's no mission. You need help. Please let them help you." Sarah had made her decision before the intake was finished. The barricading behavior, the paranoia, the inability to distinguish his delusions from reality, but the family's safety concerns, all pointed to the same conclusion. She signed the 72-hour involuntary hold. It would give them time to stabilize him on medication and assess whether he was a danger to himself or others. What she wrote in her notes would be quoted in 7 different congressional hearings over the next 2 years. Patient presence with fixed false beliefs, military service in non-existent unit, paranoid ideation regarding unnamed pursuers, hypervigilance consistent with PTSD but no documented trauma history. Sister reports 3-week decline following unexplained absence. Recommend psychiatric hold for evaluation and medication stabilization. Patient shows no insight into his condition, prognosis guarded. Michael didn't resist when the orderlies came to escort him to the secure wing. He looked at Jennifer one more time. 2 weeks, he said. They'll find you. Their names are Carter, DeMarco, Williams, and Zhao. Please, Jenny, please remember. The door locked behind him with a sound like a rifle bolt sliding home. James Carter received the alert on his phone at 03:47 hours. He was in his apartment in Alexandria, Virginia, which wasn't really his apartment, just a furnished rental he'd been using for the past 8 months while he figured out what to do with the rest of his life. The alert was a code he'd hoped he'd never see. A single word in Mandarin, Yanzi, Yanzi, swallow. It was the distress code Michael had set up before their last operation. If any of them ever went dark and didn't resurface within 72 hours, and if that person triggered the swallow protocol, it meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. Michael had been dark for 19 days. And the alert had triggered 4 hours ago. Carter made 3 phone calls. Each one lasted less than 30 seconds. By 0600, all 4 of them were on encrypted video chat. Marcus DeMarco spoke first. He was calling from Seattle, where he'd been working as a private security consultant. "I've got his last known location, his apartment in Silver Spring. Police report says his sister called 911 on February 23rd. Involuntary psychiatric commitment to Riverside Hospital." "Riverside?" David Williams, calling from Austin, pulled up the facility information on his screen. "That's a civilian facility, not VA. Why wouldn't they take him to a VA hospital?" "Because he's not in the system," Carter said quietly. "None of us are." The 4th man on the call, Kevin Zhao, was physically in Beijing, but his VPN showed him routing through 3 different countries. "I pulled the police body cam footage. Michael didn't resist. He was calm, coherent, and he gave his sister 4 names before they took him." "Our names," DeMarco said. "Our names," Zhao confirmed. Carter had known Michael Chen for 9 years. They'd met during a selection process that, officially, never happened for a unit that, officially, didn't exist. They'd operated in countries where the United States government would deny any military presence. They'd extracted assets, eliminated targets, and gathered intelligence in places where capture meant disavowal and death. The unit was called Reaper 7. There were 12 of them at full strength. Carter, DeMarco, Williams, Zhao, and Michael were the primary team. The others rotated in as needed. And 2 years ago, Reaper 7 had been shut down. Not because of failure, because they'd succeeded at something the Pentagon decided they didn't want to admit had happened. The details were still classified above top secret. What mattered was the aftermath. All records scrubbed, all personnel discharged without documentation, all evidence of the unit's existence erased. They'd been given new identities, generous financial settlements, and one unbreakable rule: never contact each other, never speak about their service, never attempt to access their classified files. Michael had followed those rules for 2 years, until 19 days ago, when something had made him break protocol, empty his bank account, and barricade himself in his apartment like he was expecting a hit team. And now he was locked in a psychiatric hospital, probably being medicated into compliance, telling doctors about a military unit that didn't exist. "We need to talk to the sister," Williams said. "Michael gave her our names for a reason." Carter had already made that decision. "I'm in D.C. I'll make contact today. The rest of you start working the problem. DeMarco, I need facility layouts, security protocols, staff schedules. Williams, I need leverage points. Who works there? Who owes money? Who has secrets? Zhao, I need to know if anyone's watching Michael. If he triggered Swallow, he thought he was compromised. We need to know if he was right." "And if he wasn't?" DeMarco asked. "If this is just, if he really did have a breakdown?" The question hung in the air. They'd all seen operators break. The work they did, the things they'd seen and done, it left marks. And not everyone could carry that weight forever. "Then we get him out anyway," Carter said, "and we get him real help. But we do it our way. We don't leave him in a civilian facility where he can't explain his service record, and they'll pump him full of antipsychotics because his truth sounds like delusion." "Agreed," Williams said. "Agreed," Zhao echoed. "Agreed," DeMarco confirmed. Carter pulled up the photo of Riverside Psychiatric Hospital on his screen. It was a 5-story building on the outskirts of Washington, D.C., surrounded by landscaped grounds and security fencing. It looked peaceful, therapeutic. It also looked, to Carter's trained eye, like a facility that would be very difficult to breach without significant collateral damage. "We have 2 weeks to plan this," he said. "Offered Michael's 72-hour hold will convert to longer-term commitment if they determine he's a threat to himself or others. Once that happens, getting him out legally becomes nearly impossible." "Who said anything about legal?" DeMarco said. Carter smiled despite himself. 14 days. We go in clean, we extract him clean, and nobody knows we were there until we're already gone. Standard Reaper protocol." "One problem," Zhao said. "We're not Reaper anymore. We do this, we're just 4 guys breaking a man out of a locked psychiatric facility. No official cover, no extraction support, no legal protection if it goes wrong." "Then we don't let it go wrong," Carter said. After the call ended, Carter sat in the dark and thought about the last time he'd seen Michael. It was at a bar in Crystal City 3 days after their official discharge, and they'd all agreed not to contact each other afterward. Too dangerous, too likely to draw attention. But Michael had broken protocol even then, showing up to say goodbye. "If any of us ever needs help," Michael had said, "and I mean the kind of help that can't go through official channels, we use Swallow, we come, no questions asked." Carter had nodded, thinking it would never happen. He'd been wrong. Jennifer Chen's apartment was in a modest complex in Bethesda. Carter knocked at 1400 hours. He'd spent the morning running surveillance, making sure nobody was watching her place. The counter-surveillance was probably overkill. If someone was monitoring Michael's family, they'd have made them move already. Probably. Jennifer opened the door with the security chain still attached. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, unwashed hair pulled into a ponytail, wearing scrubs that suggested she'd either just come from or was about to leave for a shift. She was a nurse, Carter remembered from the file Zhao had pulled. Labor and delivery at Georgetown University Hospital. "Jennifer Chen," Carter kept his voice calm, non-threatening. "My name is James Carter. Your brother Michael asked you to speak with me." Her eyes widened. "He said 4 names. You're one of them." "Yes, ma'am." She closed the door, slid the chain off, and opened it fully. "You're real. You're actually real." "Yes, ma'am." "I thought," her voice broke, "I thought he was delusional. I had him committed because I thought he was delusional." Carter stepped inside. The apartment was neat, but showed signs of strain. Dishes in the sink, mail piled on the counter, and a blanket on the couch, suggesting she'd been sleeping there instead of her bedroom. "You did what any good sister would do," Carter said gently. Michael's behavior looked like a psychiatric crisis. You couldn't have known the context. Jennifer sat down heavily on the couch. "He made me promise to answer your questions truthfully, so ask." Carter pulled out his phone and showed her a photo, the 5 of them from 7 years ago, taken during a brief leave in Dubai. Unofficial photo, against protocol, but Michael had insisted. "We should have proof we existed," he'd said. "This is our team," Carter said. "Michael told you there would be 4 men, DeMarco, Williams, Zhao, and myself. We served together in a unit that doesn't appear in any official records. When Michael barricaded himself in his apartment, it's because his training told him he was compromised. We need to understand what triggered that response." Jennifer stared at the photo. He showed me this once. 2 years ago, right after he came back. He wouldn't tell me where he'd been for 6 years, just that he'd been doing work he couldn't discuss, and then he locked that photo in a safe deposit box and told me if anything ever happened to him, I should give it to the police. Did he say why he came back 3 weeks ago, where he'd been? No, he showed up at my door February 4th. He looked terrible, lost maybe 20 pounds. He had fresh scars on his arms. He asked if anyone had come looking for him. When I said no, he seemed relieved, but also confused, like he'd expected something different. Carter's instincts started signaling. Fresh scars, what kind? Like burns, and what looked like restraint marks on his wrists. Torture scars. Someone had taken Michael, held him for... Carter did the math. Michael had gone dark 19 days before he surfaced at Jennifer's apartment, plus the 3 weeks before she called 911. That was 6 weeks total. Where had he been for those first 19 days? Jennifer, this is important. Did Michael mention any names, any places, anything that might tell us what happened during those missing weeks? She shook her head. He barely talked. He ate, he slept, and he worked on his laptop. Then about a week ago, he started acting paranoid, checking the locks constantly, asking me if I'd noticed anyone following me. I thought he was having PTSD flashbacks. I tried to get him to see a VA counselor, but he said he couldn't go through official channels because the VA would have no record of his service. That's what the psychiatrist said when I tried to have him admitted there first. They ran his name, his social, everything. No military record at all, so I had to use the civilian mental health system. Carter pulled out his second phone, the encrypted one, and sent a message to the team. Need full workup. Disappearance February 4th, minus 19 days, torture scars, possible capture and interrogation. Zhao's response came back within seconds. On it, running all signals intelligence for that window. Jennifer, I need to ask you something that's going to sound strange. In the weeks before you had Michael committed, did he seem interested in any particular news stories? Did he watch any specific news channels or websites obsessively? She frowned, thinking. Actually, yes. He kept watching coverage of Dr. Amanda Pierce's book tour. You know, the State Department official who wrote that memoir about crisis negotiations. Michael watched every interview. I thought it was odd because he'd never shown any interest in politics or diplomacy before. Carter went very still. Amanda Pierce. No, it couldn't be. Did Michael ever say why he was watching her interviews? Just once. He said something like, I need to see if she recognizes what she's looking at. I asked him what he meant, and he shut down, wouldn't discuss it further. Carter's mind raced. Amanda Pierce had been a State Department official assigned to the Middle East desk during the same years Reaper 7 had been operational. She'd written a memoir about her experiences, carefully sanitized, of course, with all classified information removed. The book had been a bestseller 6 months ago, but there was something else about Amanda Pierce, something that had bothered Carter when he'd seen her interviews, but he'd dismissed as coincidence. During one of Reaper 7's operations in Syria, Operation Chrysalis they called it, they'd extracted a diplomatic staffer who'd been taken hostage by a splinter militia group. The extraction had gone sideways, civilians had died. The whole operation had been buried so deep that even most of the Pentagon didn't know it had happened. That diplomatic staffer's name had been redacted in all reports. But Carter remembered her face. Jennifer, he said carefully, I need you to think very hard. Did Michael ever mention the name Chrysalis? Or Syria? Or anything about a hostage extraction? Her face went pale. How did you know about that? About what? The night before I called 911, I woke up to Michael having a nightmare. He was screaming in his sleep. The only words I could make out were, Chrysalis is burning and get Pierce out. When I woke him up, he looked terrified. He said, "She knows. She's known the whole time." Carter felt the pieces clicking into place with the weight of falling dominoes. Amanda Pierce hadn't just been a random diplomatic staffer they'd extracted. She'd been the primary target of Operation Chrysalis. And if Michael thought she'd recognized him, if he thought she'd known all along what had really happened during that extraction and had been waiting to use that knowledge. "Where is Dr. Pierce now?" Carter asked, though he already suspected the answer. Jennifer pulled out her phone and showed him a news article from 2 weeks ago. Former State Department official joins Riverside Psychiatric Hospital as trauma consultant. The article included a photo of Dr. Amanda Pierce shaking hands with Riverside's chief of psychiatry. The caption noted she would be working with patients who had experienced complex trauma, particularly those with military-adjacent experiences. Carter looked at Jennifer. "Does Michael know she's there?" "I don't think so. He was admitted before this article came out." But he would know now, Carter thought. The moment he'd been processed into that hospital, the moment his name had entered their system, Amanda Pierce would have seen it. And she'd have known exactly who Michael Chen was. She'd have known about Reaper 7, she'd have known about Chrysalis, and she'd have 4 years of carefully cultivated legitimacy as a trauma expert to ensure that anything Michael said about it would be dismissed as delusional. Carter's phone buzzed. Message from Zhao, got something? 19 days before Michael surfaced, there was a black bag pickup in Vienna, Virginia. 3-man team, professional, no official record of arrest or detention. Carter typed back, "Address?" Zhao's response, 2 blocks from Michael's apartment. "We have a problem," Carter said to Jennifer. "A much bigger problem than we thought." Michael had been in Ward C for 8 days, long enough to understand the rhythms, medication distribution at 700, 1200, 1800, and 2100, staff rotations every 12 hours, group therapy sessions Tuesday and Thursday, individual sessions Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. He'd been taking the medication. The antipsychotics made him foggy, slower, but he'd learned in Sears School how to metabolize drugs faster through controlled breathing and elevated heart rate. He took the pills, kept his heart rate up through isometric exercises nobody could see, and stayed functional enough to think. He'd also been watching Dr. Amanda Pierce. She hadn't approached him directly, that would have been too obvious. Instead, she'd observed his group therapy sessions from behind the one-way glass. She'd reviewed his chart. She'd spoken with Dr. Brennan about his case. She was being careful, professional, patient, which told Michael everything he needed to know. She was planning something. And whatever it was, she needed him to appear unstable enough that nobody would believe him when he tried to tell the truth. On day 9, she made her move. Michael was in the common area, pretending to watch television while actually monitoring the security camera blind spots he'd mapped over the past week. Dr. Pierce walked in with 2 orderlies he hadn't seen before. Large men, military-bearing, not regular staff. "Michael," Dr. Pierce said warmly. "I'm Dr. Amanda Pierce. I've been consulting on your case with Dr. Brennan. I was hoping we could talk in my office." "I'm comfortable here, thanks." "I'm afraid I have to insist. Part of your evaluation." The 2 orderlies moved closer. Not threateningly, but the message was clear. This wasn't a request. Michael stood, calculated his odds. 2 trained operators, probably armed, security cameras in hallways, and locked doors requiring key cards, staff who would respond to any alarm. He'd trained for extractions from harder targets than this, but not while sedated, not without his team. He followed Dr. Pierce to her office. The office was on the 2nd floor, corner location, window that overlooked the parking lot. Michael noted the exits, the security features, the defensive positions out of habit. Dr. Pierce closed the door. The two orderlies remained outside. "You can drop the act," she said. "We both know who you are." Michael said nothing. "Staff Sergeant Michael Chen, Reaper 7, Operation Chrysalis, Operation Sandstorm, Operation Nightfall. Should I continue?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. Just like you knew exactly what you were looking at when you watched my interviews. That's why you went dark, isn't it? You recognized something in my background that made you realize I'd been waiting." Michael kept his expression neutral. "I'm a psychiatric patient with military-themed delusions. That's what my chart says." Amanda smiled. "Very good. You've been well trained. But here's what you don't understand, Michael. I'm not your enemy. I never was. Chrysalis says otherwise." The smile faltered. "Chrysalis was complicated. 18 civilians died because your extraction went sideways. We were told you didn't know they were using you as bait, that the militia wasn't supposed to be there." "They weren't. I didn't know." "But you figured it out later." Amanda walked to the window, her back to him. "I spent 4 years trying to understand what happened that night. The State Department told me one story, the CIA told me another. Neither of them mentioned Reaper 7. Neither of them mentioned that the extraction team wasn't regular military. So you wrote a book." "I wrote a carefully sanitized memoir that still managed to bury hints in the footnotes, references to ghost units, unexplained casualties, timeline gaps that didn't make sense. I was hoping someone would recognize what I was really saying." "And?" She turned back to face him. 19 days ago someone did. 3 men grabbed you off the street in Vienna, professionals. They took you to a black site and spent 19 days trying to extract information about Reaper 7's operations. Specifically, they wanted to know what you knew about Chrysalis." Michael's blood went cold. She shouldn't have known about that. Nobody should have known except the team that grabbed you, Amanda continued. They weren't government. They were contractors working for a private military company that's been trying to identify Reaper 7 operatives for 2 years. They think you have intelligence they can sell. "How do you know this?" "Because I'm the one who got you out." Michael stared at her. "What?" "You escaped, Michael. At least, that's what you think happened. You woke up in an alley in Silver Spring with no memory of the previous 18 hours. You made it to your sister's apartment. You started exhibiting classic PTSD symptoms. All true, yes?" He nodded slowly. "What you don't remember, what they made sure you wouldn't remember, is that I arranged your extraction from that black site. I used contacts in the intelligence community to locate you, and I used my position as a trauma consultant to orchestrate a medical intervention that got you out before they broke you." "Why?" "Because I owe you my life. Because 18 civilians died on my watch, and the least I can do is make sure the men who saved me don't get thrown away by the same government that disavowed them. And because, Michael..." She pulled a folder from her desk drawer. "I need your help proving that Chrysalis wasn't a botched extraction. It was a sanctioned assassination that went wrong, and someone very high up in the Pentagon has been covering it up for 4 years." She opened the folder. Inside were classified documents that should have been destroyed years ago. "These are the original operation orders for Chrysalis. They show that the civilian casualties weren't collateral damage. They were the objective. The militia was supposed to kill me and create an international incident that would justify military intervention in Syria. But Reaper 7 was too good. You got me out alive, and that's when the cover-up started." Michael's mind raced. If this was true, if Chrysalis had been a false flag operation from the beginning, who ordered it? That's what I've been trying to find out. But everyone connected to the operation has either died, disappeared, or been reassigned to positions where they can't talk. You and your team are the last people alive who know the truth about what happened that night. And you think getting me committed to a psychiatric hospital is going to help how? Because nobody is looking for you here. The people who grabbed you, they think you're still unstable from the interrogation. And they think you'll self-destruct before you can talk. By the time they realize you're coherent enough to be a threat, your team will have figured out what's happening. And when they come for you, she pulled out a second document. I'm going to make sure they get everything they need to blow this conspiracy wide open. Michael looked at the documents, then at Amanda, then at the door where the two orderlies waited. Those men outside, he said, they're not orderlies. No, they're former contractors who work for me now. They're here to make sure nobody else gets to you before your team arrives. You're assuming they'll come? Michael, you triggered Swallow. Of course they're coming. Carter had been inside Riverside Hospital for 6 hours, wearing a visitor's badge that identified him as David Morrison, a patient advocate. The badge was legitimate. Williams had hacked the hospital's credentialing system and inserted Carter's false identity into their database 12 hours ago. So far, nobody had questioned his presence. He'd spent the time mapping the facility. Security checkpoints, camera locations, staff patterns, patient movements. He'd identified 3 possible extraction routes and 2 backup contingencies. What he hadn't been able to do was get close to Ward C, where Michael was being held. The secure psychiatric wing required specialized clearance, and visitor access was strictly controlled. He was working on his 4th approach angle when his phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Zhao. Pierce is not what she seems. Check attachment. The attachment was a heavily redacted intelligence file. But what wasn't redacted made Carter's stomach drop. Dr. Amanda Pierce, former State Department official, consultant for Riverside Psychiatric Hospital. Also, consultant for Crawford Security Solutions, a private military contractor with deep ties to former CIA operations officers. Crawford Security Solutions, the same company that had been quietly recruiting former special operations personnel for high-risk protective services in the Middle East. The same company that had been investigated and cleared for involvement in a black site operation in Northern Virginia 6 months ago. Carter sent back, "How certain are you about this?" Zhao, "Financial records are solid. She's been on their payroll for 18 months. Whatever she's doing at Riverside, it's not just trauma consulting." Carter's next message went to all 3 team members. Extraction timeline just moved up. "We go tonight. DeMarco, we're not ready. Security protocols aren't fully mapped." Carter, "We're out of time. If Pierce is working for Crawford, Michael's not safe in there." Williams, "What if it's a trap? What if they want us to try an extraction?" Carter had considered that possibility. It made sense from a tactical perspective. Grab one Reaper 7 operator, use him as bait to draw out the rest of the team, neutralize all of them at once. But the alternative, leaving Michael in there, was worse. Carter, 0200 hours, North Service entrance. DeMarco, you're on vehicle. Williams, electronic countermeasures. Zhao, overwatch. I'm going in. The plan was simple, which was either its strength or its fatal flaw. T. Carter would use his visitor credentials to stay in the building past visiting hours by hiding in a maintenance closet on the 2nd floor. At 0200, when staff was minimal and security patrols were between rounds, he'd move toward C using the stolen keycard Williams had cloned from a staff member earlier that day. He'd locate Michael, sedate any staff who couldn't be avoided, and extract him through the North Service entrance where DeMarco would be waiting with a vehicle. Zhao would be on a rooftop 3 blocks away, providing overwatch and coordinating communications. They'd be out of the building in under 7 minutes, out of the city in under 20, across state lines before hospital security even realized what had happened. It was the kind of operation they'd run dozens of times in hostile territory. And except this wasn't hostile territory, this was Washington, D.C., And the people inside weren't enemy combatants. They were doctors and nurses trying to help patients. If anything went wrong, if anyone got hurt, there would be no official cover, no extraction team to pull them out, no government agency to smooth over the incident. They'd be criminals, nothing more. Carter thought about calling it off, thought about trying one more time to work through official channels to find a legal way to get Michael released. Then he thought about the scars Jennifer had described, the torture marks, the 19 days Michael had spent in a black site, being interrogated by people who wanted to know about operations that were supposed to have been erased from history. Official channels had failed Michael. Hell, official channels had erased Michael. Well, Carter texted the team one final message. This is voluntary. Anyone wants out, now's the time. No judgment. 3 responses came back within seconds. DeMarco, I'm in. Williams, I'm in. Zhao, when have I ever let you have all the fun? Carter smiled despite the weight in his chest. At 1800 hours, he found the maintenance closet on the 2nd floor and settled in to wait. He had 8 hours until execution, 8 hours to review the plan, to check his gear, to prepare for the dozens of things that could go wrong. At 2100 hours, his phone buzzed. Unknown number, text message, north parking lot, come alone. A P. Carter's training screamed trap, but he went anyway. Amanda Pierce was waiting beside a dark SUV. She was alone, or appeared to be. Carter approached carefully, keeping his hands visible, scanning for backup teams. "Mister, well, Carter," she said, "we need to talk about your extraction plan." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please, I've been monitoring hospital security since you walked in 6 hours ago. You're good, but you're not invisible. Neither are your team members who've been conducting surveillance on this building for the past 3 days." Carter said nothing. Amanda pulled out a tablet and showed him a series of photos. DeMarco doing a vehicle survey of the service entrance. Williams interviewing staff in the cafeteria. Zhao on a rooftop with optics equipment. "I'm not going to stop you," Amanda said. "In fact, I'm going to help you. But first, you need to understand what you're really walking into." She pulled up a second file on the tablet. Video footage from inside Ward C, time-stamped from earlier that day. The footage showed Michael in his room, but he wasn't alone. A man in a suit was standing over him, not a doctor, not an orderly. The man's face was turned away from the camera, but something about his posture made Carter's blood run cold. "That man arrived this afternoon," Amanda said. "He has credentials identifying him as a federal marshal transporting a material witness. Those credentials are fake, but they're good enough to pass hospital security screening." "Who is he?" "His name is Victor Kessler. He's a fixer for Crawford Security Solutions, and he's here to kill Michael before you can extract him." "Why should I trust you?" Carter asked. Amanda didn't hesitate. "Because 4 years ago, Michael Chen carried me out of a burning building while people were shooting at us. Because when I asked him why he'd risked his life for someone he didn't know, he said, 'Because that's what we do.' And because I've spent every day since then trying to make sure that the men who saved me don't get erased by the same system that tried to kill me." She pulled out a second tablet and showed Carter a series of encrypted files. "These are the complete operational records for Chrysalis, not the sanitized version, the real files showing that the mission was designed from the beginning to create a diplomatic incident. I was supposed to die. The militia was supposed to kill me. The whole thing was orchestrated to justify a military intervention that would benefit a specific set of defense contractors. Crawford Security Solutions, among others, but when Reaper 7 extracted me successfully, the whole operation fell apart. Someone very powerful lost a lot of money, and they've been trying to clean up the loose ends ever since." Carter studied the files. If they were genuine, and they looked genuine, This was enough to bring down half a dozen Pentagon officials and expose one of the largest false flag operations in recent military history. Why haven't you gone public with this? Because I need corroboration. I need sworn testimony from at least one member of Reaper 7 confirming what happened during Chrysalis. Without that, these files are just conspiracy theories from a disgruntled diplomat with an axe to grind. So, you need Michael alive. I need all of you alive, but yes, Michael is the priority right now because he's the one Kessler is going to kill tonight. Carter made a decision. He pulled out his phone and sent an encrypted message to the team. Change of plans. We have a potential ally inside. Stand by for new briefing. To Amanda, he said, "What's your play?" She opened a map of Riverside Hospital on her tablet. Kessler arrived with 3 men. They're posing as federal transport team. Hospital administration has been told they're taking Michael into federal custody at 0300 hours for questioning related to a terrorism investigation. The hospital approved this? They don't have a choice. The credentials are perfect, the paperwork is legitimate, and nobody wants to obstruct a federal investigation. By the time anyone realizes the transport team was fake, Michael will be dead and disposed of. So we intercept the transport? No. We let them think they're executing their plan. Then we hit them when they're vulnerable. I've arranged for the transport to take place through the basement loading dock. It's the most isolated part of the hospital. Minimum staff, minimum witnesses. Carter saw where this was going. You want us to hit them in the loading dock? I want you to replace them in the loading dock. You and your team take out Kessler's people, assume their identities, and transport Michael out of here in their vehicle. As far as hospital records are concerned, he was legitimately transferred to federal custody. By the time Crawford realizes something went wrong, you'll be long gone. It was a good plan, better than Carter's original extraction strategy, because it had official cover and minimal risk of civilian casualties. It also required trusting Amanda Pierce completely. Carter looked at her, a former State Department official, trauma consultant, potential ally, or elaborate trap. If this is a setup, he said quietly, if you're working with Kessler, and this is designed to draw all of us into one location, then I'm an idiot who just gave you complete tactical awareness of the ambush site and detailed information about the opposing force. Amanda interrupted. Carter, I don't need to trick you into a trap. If I wanted you dead, I could have simply let you walk into Ward C tonight without warning you about Kessler. You'd have been dead before you reached Michael's room. Fair point. Carter sent another message to the team. New plan. We're hitting a transport team in the basement loading dock at 0300. 4 hostiles, federal credentials, 1 principal to extract. Amanda Pierce is running inside coordination. DeMarco's response. You trust her? Carter looked at Amanda. Thought about Michael's description of Chrysalis. Because that's what we do, he sent back. She's one of us. She just didn't know it until 4 years ago. At 0245 hours, Carter and his team were in position. DeMarco had the vehicle, a stolen ambulance that matched Riverside's fleet, complete with cloned plates and forged maintenance records. He was parked in the civilian lot, ready to move to the loading dock when called. Williams was in the hospital's basement mechanical room, having bypassed security through a maintenance hatch Amanda had left unlocked. He had control of the loading dock's camera feeds and could loop or manipulate footage as needed. Zhao was on the roof of an adjacent building with a suppressed precision rifle. He had clean line of sight to the loading dock and the approach roads. Carter was inside the hospital, wearing a stolen orderly uniform, positioned near the stairs leading to Ward C. Amanda Pierce was in her office, monitoring hospital security communications and ready to provide real-time intelligence. The plan was simple. Kessler's team would bring Michael down from Ward C at 0300. They'd take the service elevator to the basement. When they exited into the loading dock, Zhao would eliminate the rear guard with suppressed fire. Carter and Williams would neutralize the remaining 2 escorts. DeMarco would pull the ambulance into position. They'd load Michael, leave Kessler and his team unconscious or dead, depending on resistance, and be out of the area in under 90 seconds. Clean, precise, standard, Reaper 7, protocol. At 0257, Amanda's voice came through Carter's earpiece. Transport team is moving, 4 subjects plus principal. They're taking the service elevator now. Carter moved to his position near the elevator bank. Williams confirmed camera loops were active. Zhao reported sight lines clear. At 0301, the service elevator arrived at the basement level. The doors opened. 4 men in suits emerged, surrounding a 5th figure. Michael, walking under his own power but clearly sedated. His hands were zip-tied behind his back. One of the suited men had a hand on his shoulder, guiding him forward. Carter waited until they were 10 feet from the loading dock door, then gave the signal. Zhao's first shot took the rear guard in the back of the head, suppressed .308 round. Instant kill. The man dropped without a sound. The second guard started to turn, but reaching for his weapon, but Williams emerged from the mechanical room and put 2 rounds center mass. The guard went down. That left Kessler and 1 remaining escort. Kessler reacted faster than Carter expected. He grabbed Michael, used him as a human shield, and pulled a pistol from his jacket. "Federal agents!" Kessler shouted, though there was no one else in the basement to hear him. "Drop your weapons!" Carter kept his rifle trained on the visible portions of Kessler's body. "You're not federal agents, you're private contractors working for Crawford. Let him go." Kessler's eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you?" "Reaper 7, we're here for our teammate." For a moment, something like respect crossed Kessler's face. "So the ghosts are real. Did Crawford's been looking for you for 2 years. Tell Crawford they should have looked harder." The remaining escort made his move. Bad decision. Carter shot him twice in the chest, adjusted aim, shot him once more in the head as he fell. The man was dead before he hit the concrete. Now it was just Kessler, using Michael as a shield. "Here's how this plays out," Kessler said calmly. "You let me walk out of here with Chen and nobody else dies tonight. You try to stop me and I put a bullet in his brain before your sniper can line up a shot." Michael's eyes were clearer than Carter expected. The sedation was wearing off faster than it should have, or Michael was metabolizing it faster, using techniques they'd all learned in SEER school. "Carter," Michael said quietly, "Chrysalis Protocol." Carter understood immediately. During Operation Chrysalis, they developed a specific CQB technique for hostage situations where the hostage was also a trained operator. It required the hostage to make themselves as small a shield as possible, while the rescue team took simultaneous shots from multiple angles, but it required split-second timing and absolute trust. "Zhao," Carter said into his mic, "you have the shot." "Negative. Target is using principal as full cover. I need 1 inch of exposure." "Williams?" "Same. No clean angle from my position." Kessler smiled. "Looks like you're out of options." Michael caught Carter's eye, mouthed a single word. 3. Carter understood. On a count of 3, Michael would drop and roll, creating a window of approximately 0.8 seconds where Kessler would be exposed. Carter signaled to Zhao and Williams, "On my mark," or hostile center mass. He started the count silently, using hand signals Michael would see but Kessler wouldn't understand. 1, 2, 3. Michael dropped straight down, his legs collapsing in a controlled fall, while simultaneously rolling left. It was a move that would have been impossible for a civilian, difficult even for most soldiers, but Reaper 7 had drilled it until it was muscle memory. Kessler had exactly 0.8 seconds of exposure. 3 shots fired simultaneously. Zhao's .308 round entered Kessler's chest from the elevated angle, penetrating the heart. Williams' 9mm double tap caught him in the center mass, one round grazing the heart, the other destroying the aorta. Carter's round entered through the throat, severing the carotid and continuing into the brain stem. Kessler was dead before he could squeeze the trigger. Michael rolled clear. Carter moved forward and cut the zip ties with a folding knife. "You're late," Michael said. "Traffic was terrible," Carter replied. DeMarco's voice came through the earpiece. "Ambulance in position. We have company approaching, 2 vehicles, fast approach from the North Access Road." Amanda Pierce's voice tense. "That's hospital security responding to the basement. Someone triggered a panic alarm." Carter looked at the 4 dead bodies, the blood pooling on the concrete, the loading dock that was now a crime scene that would require explanations nobody could provide. "Change of plans," he said. "We don't have time for the transport cover. Williams, blow the circuit breakers for this section. DeMarco, bring the ambulance to the north emergency exit. Zhao, provide mobile overwatch. We're going loud." Williams killed the lights. The entire basement level went dark except for emergency lighting, which cast everything in a red haze that reminded Carter of a dozen other operations in a dozen other countries. They moved fast. Carter took point, Michael beside him despite the lingering effects of sedation. Williams covered rear. They hit the north stairwell at a run, taking stairs 3 at a time. Behind them, they could hear shouts, footsteps, the sound of hospital security responding to the alarm. But Carter's team had trained for extractions under fire. They moved with the kind of coordinated precision that only comes from years of operating together in hostile environments. They hit the ground floor emergency exit and found DeMarco waiting with the ambulance. And Zhao's voice in their earpieces, "2 security vehicles converging on your position, 30 seconds. Not enough time." But then Amanda Pierce's voice, "Carter, take the west hallway through the cafeteria. It exits to the staff parking lot. I'm creating a diversion at the main entrance." Carter made the call. "Follow Pierce's route. Go!" They diverted through the cafeteria, which was empty at this hour. Through the kitchen, through the staff, break room, out into the parking lot where DeMarco was already repositioning the ambulance. Behind them, they could hear sirens, shouting, the organized chaos of a hospital lockdown. They piled into the ambulance. DeMarco hit the accelerator before the doors were fully closed. Zhao was already moving to the extraction point, a parking garage 3 blocks away where they'd staged a second vehicle. And the plan was to switch vehicles, split up, and disappear into the DC metro area before any coordinated response could form. Carter looked at Michael, who was sitting in the back of the ambulance, breathing hard, zip tie marks still visible on his wrists. "You good?" Carter asked. Michael nodded. "Better now than I've been in 6 weeks. Thanks for the rescue." "That's what we do." DeMarco's voice from the driver's seat. "We have a tail, 2 vehicles, not police, private security. Crawford's people, maybe." Williams pulled up a tactical display on his tablet, showing their position and the pursuing vehicles. "They're trying to box us in. 3 more vehicles approaching from parallel streets. 6 vehicles total. Coordinated pursuit. Or this wasn't a response to the hospital extraction. This was a planned intercept that had been waiting for them to make their move." Carter's mind raced through scenarios. They'd been made. Someone had known they were coming and had positioned a response team to grab them during the extraction. But who? Amanda Pierce? Had she sold them out after all? Then Zhao's voice. "Carter, You need to see this. I'm sending video." The video feed appeared on William's tablet. It showed Amanda Pierce in the hospital parking lot, being forced into a black SUV by 3 men. She was struggling, shouting, but the men were professionals. They had her in the vehicle and moving within seconds. "They grabbed Pierce," Zhao said. "Same team that's pursuing you. This was a dual-target operation." Carter understood immediately. Crawford didn't just want Michael, and they wanted everyone connected to Chrysalis. That included Amanda Pierce, who had the classified files, and it included Reaper 7, who had the operational knowledge. "Williams, how many pursuers total?" 8 vehicles now. They're not trying to stop us. They're herding us, pushing us toward the docks." The docks, isolated area, easy to dispose of bodies, classic kill box setup. "DeMarco, can you lose them?" "Not in an ambulance. We need to switch vehicles." But they were 3 blocks from the extraction point, and the pursuers were cutting off every route. Carter made the call. "Zhao, can you reach Pierce's vehicle?" "Negative. They're moving too fast. Too much traffic in between." "Then we go to them. DeMarco, stop trying to evade. Head straight for the docks. Make them think we're running into the trap." Carter. "Trust me." "Williams, I need you to send a message on Crawford's tactical frequency. Tell them we want to negotiate. Tell them we'll trade Michael and the Chrysalis files for safe passage." Williams stared at him. "You want to give them what they want?" "I want them to think we're desperate enough to consider it." "Zhao, when we get to the docks, I need you in position for a 4-target takedown. Can you do it?" Pause, then. "If you're asking if I can take 4 shots in under 10 seconds at extended range in low-light conditions, the answer is yes. If you're asking if I should, the answer is that's insane. I'll take that as a yes. Everyone else, prepare for close quarters engagement. We're going to draw them into the kill box, then we're going to turn their own trap against them." Michael spoke up for the first time since the ambulance. You have a plan?" Carter smiled. "Remember Kandahar? When we were outnumbered 8-1 and decided the best defense was to make them think we were surrendering? We lost 3 guys in that operation. But we won, and this time we're not going to lose anyone." The docks were exactly what Carter expected. Isolated, dark, perfect ambush site. 8 vehicles surrounded the ambulance in a textbook containment formation. Approximately 24 hostiles, all armed, all professionals. A man stepped forward from the lead vehicle. Not Kessler. He was dead in the hospital basement. This was someone else. Older, harder, with the kind of bearing that suggested he'd been giving orders for a very long time. "I'm Director Matheson," the man said. "Crawford Security Solutions. You have something that belongs to us." Carter stepped out of the ambulance, hands visible, no weapon. "You have someone who belongs to us." Matheson smiled. "Dr. Pierce? She's been ours for 18 months. Consultant contract, very generous terms. What makes you think she belongs to you?" "Because she saved one of my men. That makes her family." Touching. But it doesn't change the situation. You're surrounded, outgunned, and out of options. Give us Chen and the Chrysalis files and we'll let you walk away. No deal. Then you die here? Maybe, but so do you. Zhao? Zhao's voice came through speakers on Williams's tablet. Carter had set it to broadcast. "I have target acquisition on Director Matheson and 3 additional high-value targets. On Carter's mark, all 4 are dead before they can give an order." Matheson's expression didn't change, but Carter saw the subtle shift in posture that indicated he was reassessing the situation. "You're bluffing," Matheson said. "Try me." Silence stretched out. 24 guns aimed at 5 men, 1 sniper in an unknown position, a Mexican standoff with lethal consequences for whoever moved first. Then a new voice cut through the darkness. Nobody's killing anybody tonight. Amanda Pierce stepped out of the SUV where she'd been held. She was holding a phone, and on that phone was a live video feed that was being broadcast to approximately 30 different news organizations simultaneously. "I've just uploaded the complete chrysalis files to 3 different secure servers," Amanda said. "Every major news organization in the country will have access within the hour. Congressional intelligence committees will have copies by morning, and I've given a sworn deposition to federal investigators detailing Crawford Security Solutions' involvement in the operation, the subsequent cover-up, and tonight's attempted murder of witnesses." She looked at Matheson. "So here's how this actually ends. You let these men go, you let me go. You drive away and you pray that your lawyers are better than your operational security. Because if anyone in this parking lot gets hurt tonight, the fallout is going to bury you and everyone you work for." Matheson's face was stone. "You just destroyed your own career." "Maybe. But I'm going to sleep well, knowing that the men who saved my life 4 years ago aren't going to be erased by the same system that tried to kill me." "Carter?" Carter didn't move. "Stand down, Zhao. Let's see how this plays out." Matheson looked at his men, looked at the phone broadcasting live video, looked at Carter and his team. "This isn't over," Matheson said. "Yeah, it is," Carter replied. "You just don't know it yet." Matheson and his team withdrew. 8 vehicles left the docks in formation, disappearing into the DC night. When they were gone, Carter walked over to Amanda. "Thank you," he said simply. "Thank you for teaching me what that's what we do really means." Michael approached, steadier on his feet now. "So, what happens next?" Carter looked at his team. DeMarco, Williams, Zhao, and Michael back where he belonged. "Next, he said we tell the truth about Chrysalis, about Reaper 7, about everything they tried to erase, and we make sure that when it's over, people remember that we existed." Amanda pulled up a news alert on her phone. It showed breaking news coverage of the Chrysalis files being released. Within the hour, 3 Pentagon officials would resign. Within a week, congressional hearings would begin. Within a month, Reaper 7 would be officially acknowledged, and all of its members would be offered full reinstatement with back pay and benefits. But that was later. Right now, in a parking lot on the DC docks, 5 people stood together and watched the sun come up over the city. 5 people who'd been erased from history. 5 people who'd just written themselves back in. Jennifer Chen got a phone call at 06:47 hours. It was Michael. He was safe. As he was coming home, and he had 4 people he wanted her to meet. The last thing Dr. Sarah Brennan wrote in her notes about Michael Chen's case: "Patient extracted from facility by unknown parties. Federal investigation ongoing. For what it's worth, I no longer believe he was delusional. I think he was the sanest person in that hospital, and I think he was surrounded by people who would move heaven and earth to bring him home. I hope someday I'm fortunate enough to have people like that in my life."